Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready for a story that will leave you thinking. And if you love inspiring tales, a like goes a long way. I don't think you can afford to be here. The waiter's whispered words cut through the ambient chatter of Liciel, slicing the father's dignity in front of his wide-eyed daughter. Every head at nearby tables pretended not to notice, but their silence amplified the humiliation. John Miller tightened his grip on the leather-bound menu, his calloused hands betraying 6 months of overtime shifts and saving every penny. His daughter Emma sat across from him in her best dress, her eyes still sparkling with wonder at the crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths. This was supposed to be her special night. Behind them, a man in a tailored Tom Ford suit lowered his menu. His sunglasses may have been off, but everyone in Hollywood would recognize those eyes. Robert Downey Jr. had been enjoying a quiet dinner until now, but his attention had shifted entirely to the scene unfolding 2 tables away. If this moment made you feel something, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and stay with us. Subscribe now. John's weathered finger traced down the right side of the menu, the side with prices, his heart sinking with each elegant number. The construction worker's monthly budget had already been stretched beyond breaking. 8-year-old Emma pointed excitedly at a colorful dessert passing their table, oblivious to her father's silent calculations. "Daddy, can I get the chocolate thing with the gold on top?" she whispered, her birthday dress still crisp from its first wearing. The waiter returned, expression pinched as John ordered the cheapest pasta dish to share. "Just one entree?" The waiter's eyebrow arched. Perhaps Sir would be more comfortable at the cafe down the street. His French accent thickened with disdain, voice deliberately carrying to neighboring tables. A woman in diamonds glanced over, then quickly away, champagne flute delicately raised to hide her expression. John's face burned as he reached for his water glass, knuckles white against the crystal stem. 6 months of extra shifts at the construction site, of skipped lunches and bus rides instead of gas for his truck, all for this special night with Emma. Her mother had left when she was 3, and he'd promised himself that his daughter would never feel the absence of anything important. "It's okay, Daddy," Emma whispered, her small hand reaching across the table to touch his. "We can share. I'm not that hungry anyway." The lie in her statement was betrayed by the longing glance she cast at a waiter passing with a tray of glistening appetizers. The surrounding tables continued their conversations, but the energy had shifted. Judgmental glances darted their way, disguised as casual observation. Forks clinked against fine china, as diners pretended not to notice the growing discomfort at table 17. Behind them, Robert Downey Jr. set his menu down completely. The waiter returned, setting down a small basket of bread with theatrical reluctance. "Your appetizer," he announced with thinly veiled sarcasm. "The kitchen will prepare your shared entree shortly." He lingered a moment too long, as if waiting for John to recognize the inadequacy of his order and leave. Emma reached for a piece of bread, her smile faltering as she caught the waiter's disapproving glance. She slowly withdrew her hand, suddenly conscious of her place in this glittering world. The light dimmed in her eyes, the birthday magic dissolving under the weight of adult cruelty. John saw it happen, that exact moment when his daughter's innocent joy collided with the world's harsh judgment. His chest tightened with a familiar helplessness, the same feeling he'd had standing in the rain outside their apartment after the eviction notice. In the elegant ambient lighting of Liciel, Robert Downey Jr. observed everything, his expression shifting from casual interest to focused intensity. The actor set his napkin beside his plate and signaled to his own server, speaking in low tones that didn't carry across the room. Things are about to take a turn. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, like our video, and keep watching. Perhaps Sir would prefer tap water instead of the imported sparkling. The waiter had returned, delivering another barb with practiced precision. It would be more economical. The word hung in the air, weaponized against John's dignity. A woman at a nearby table tittered behind her hand. A businessman in an Italian suit smirked. The social hierarchy of Le Ciel was being enforced, and John and Emma were clearly marked as outsiders. John cleared his throat. "The sparkling is fine, thank you." His voice steady despite the humiliation burning in his chest. Every dollar spent here meant another shift he'd need to work, another bill juggled next month, but he wouldn't let them diminish Emma's night any further. Emma stared at her empty plate, her earlier excitement extinguished. She was old enough to understand money problems, had heard enough late-night phone calls with the bank, had seen enough past-due notices on the counter. "Daddy," she whispered, "we can go somewhere else if—" "Sir?" The waiter interrupted, holding the sparkling water bottle at a deliberate distance from their table. "I'm afraid our executive chef has concerns about portion splitting. It's against our policy for entree." The restaurant seemed to quiet, as if everyone was now openly listening. John felt the walls closing in, the exit suddenly miles away across the plush carpet. "Excuse me?" The voice cut through the tension, smooth, confident, immediately recognizable. "I couldn't help but overhear." Robert Downey Jr. stood beside their table now, his presence drawing every eye in the restaurant. The waiter's demeanor transformed instantly. "Mr. Downey, what an honor. Is there a problem with your meal?" "No, my meal's fine." Downey's eyes never left the waiter's face. "But I'm concerned about your treatment of these guests." The actor's voice maintained its casual tone, but carried an undercurrent of steel. From where I was sitting, it seemed deliberately unkind. The waiter paled. "Sir, I assure you, I was merely explaining our restaurant policies regarding..." "Regarding what?" Downey raised an eyebrow. "Making a father and his daughter feel unwelcome on what's clearly a special night?" He gestured toward Emma's birthday dress. Emma stared up at her favorite superhero, recognition widening her eyes. The restaurant had gone completely silent now, every table watching the scene unfold. John started to stand, caught between gratitude and embarrassment. "Please, sir, stay seated." Downey placed a gentle hand on John's shoulder. "I believe your waiter was about to apologize and bring you both the full menu again." His gaze returned to the waiter, expectant and unwavering. The waiter stuttered, composure fractured. "Of course, Mr. Downey. Right away." He backed away, nearly colliding with another server in his haste to retreat to the kitchen. Downey turned to Emma, his expression softening. "Is it your birthday?" he asked, crouching slightly to meet her at eye level. Emma nodded, barely able to speak. "Yes, sir. I'm 8 today." 8? That's a great age. I have a daughter who just loved being 8. He smiled, then glanced at John. "Mind if I join you for a moment?" Before John could answer, the restaurant manager appeared, profuse apologies flowing. "Mr. Downey, please, allow us to move you all to our finest table. The chef would be honored to prepare his special tasting menu." The calculation was transparent. Damage control, celebrity appeasement. Downey shook his head. "Their table is perfect, but I think they'd appreciate those menus now. The full menus." His emphasis made the meaning clear. "And perhaps some celebration is in order?" He winked at Emma. Phones had appeared around the restaurant, discreetly filming. Social media would soon light up with what was happening. But Downey seemed unconcerned. his focus entirely on the father and daughter whose evening he'd just transformed. John found his voice at last. "Mr. Downey, I appreciate the gesture, but we couldn't possibly—" "Tony Stark picks up the tab when he crashes a birthday party," Downey said with a grin that made Emma giggle. "It's in my contract." The actor pulled out the empty chair at their table. "Now what looks good on that menu, birthday girl? This story is only getting deeper. What would you do in this situation? Comment below, and let's talk." The restaurant transformed around them. Servers appeared with fresh bread baskets, water glasses were refilled, and the sommelier materialized to offer John a selection of wines on the house. Emma's eyes sparkled again as she tentatively reached for a warm roll, looking to Downey for reassurance. "Go ahead," he encouraged. "The bread here is amazing, but save room. The chocolate thing with gold on top? Totally worth it." He winked, and Emma's face lit up at the realization he'd overheard her earlier wish. The original waiter returned, humility now etched into his formerly haughty features. "Your new server will be with you momentarily," he said stiffly. "The chef extends his personal apologies and would like to prepare a special birthday dessert." John watched this reversal of fortune with a mixture of gratitude and discomfort. "Mr. Downey, you really don't need to—" "Robert, please." The actor leaned in, voice lowered so only John could hear. "Look, I grew up with nothing. My dad worked construction too for a while." He nodded toward John's calloused hands. "Before tonight, your daughter saw this place as magical. Let's keep it that way." The restaurant buzzed with new energy. Whispers traveled from table to table. Some diners looked ashamed, others intrigued. The woman with diamonds now stared openly, her earlier dismissal replaced with calculation. Emma ordered the lamb with truffle potatoes, unable to contain her excitement as she pointed to the dish she'd been secretly admiring on a neighboring table. John selected the filet mignon, the relief in his expression evident as Downey assured him to order whatever appealed to him. Their new server, attentive and warm, treated them with the deference usually reserved for the restaurant's wealthiest patrons. "Mr. Stark, Mr. Downey," Emma said, her hands fidgeting with her napkin. "Why did you help us?" The conversation at nearby tables quieted again, diners leaning slightly to catch the actor's response. Downey considered her question thoughtfully. "Because true class has nothing to do with how much money you have," he said, loud enough for surrounding tables to hear. "It's about how you treat people." His eyes swept meaningfully across the room. Several diners shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. "When I was struggling, and I've struggled plenty, people judged me based on appearances too." Downey's usual rapid-fire delivery slowed, each word measured. "Your dad brought you here because he loves you enough to give you the best experience he can. That's worth more than anyone paying for 1,000 meals without thinking twice." John's eyes glistened. "Thank you," he said simply, the words carrying the weight of years of struggle and sacrifice. The kitchen doors swung open as the chef himself emerged, a towering chocolate dessert with edible gold leaf in his hands. Emma's eyes widened as the staff gathered to sing "Happy Birthday." For a moment, she was just a little girl again, untouched by the world's cruel judgments. "Make a wish," Downey said as the dessert was placed before her, a single candle flickering atop the chocolate creation. Emma closed her eyes tightly, then blew out the candle. The restaurant erupted in applause, genuine this time, not performative. Something had shifted in the atmosphere, a collective recognition of witnessed truth. The manager approached again, bending to whisper in Downey's ear. The actor shook his head firmly. "No, their meal's on me, but I would like you to do something." He spoke quietly now, but his intent was clear from the manager's changing expression. "Of course, Mr. Downey. Immediately." The manager retreated, speaking quickly to the host at the front. John leaned forward. What was that about? Downey smiled, watching as Emma dug into her dessert with unrestrained joy. "I asked him to start a program. Once a month, this restaurant will host families who normally couldn't afford to dine here. No different treatment, no separate menu, just the full Le Ciel experience." The businessman who had smirked earlier now looked down at his plate, abashed. The diamond woman's companion whispered something in her ear that made her expression falter. Around them, the energy continued to transform, discomfort giving way to reflection. "It's not over yet. The best part is coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it." As they finished their meal, diners began approaching their table, not for Downey's autograph, but to speak to John and Emma. A silver-haired executive stopped to tell John about starting his own career in construction. A fashionable couple invited Emma to blow out another candle on their dessert. The woman with diamonds quietly apologized for her earlier reaction. "Looks like you've got some fans," Downey observed with satisfaction as another guest stopped to chat. He had declined numerous requests for selfies, gently redirecting attention to the birthday celebration instead. "I don't understand," John said, watching the transformed room with amazement. "An hour ago, they couldn't wait for us to leave." People follow examples, good and bad. Downey shrugged. Once someone shows them a better way, most want to do the right thing. He nodded toward the original waiter who now stood chastened at the service station. Even him, probably. Emma, chocolate smeared adorably on one cheek, looked up at the actor with unbridled admiration. "This is the best birthday ever," she declared loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Several diners smiled in response, some wiping discreet tears. Outside the restaurant, a small crowd had gathered, news of the evening's events having spread through social media. As they prepared to leave, the manager presented John with a business card. "Mr. Miller, we would be honored if you would call us next month. The first family night at Le Ciel will be dedicated to Emma." He bowed slightly. "And your meal tonight has been "I've got it," Downey interjected smoothly, passing his card to the manager. "But I'd like to sponsor the first 3 family nights." He turned to John. "And I hope you'll help select the families." John nodded, emotion making speech difficult. Emma slipped her small hand into her father's calloused one, standing taller now, her dignity restored. The restaurant doors opened and cameras flashed outside. Downey placed a protective hand on Emma's shoulder. "Ready for your red carpet moment, birthday girl." She looked up at him with perfect seriousness. "Thank you for making them see my dad the way I do." The actor's practiced charm faltered for a moment, genuine emotion breaking through. Even after all his film roles, these simple words from an 8-year-old seemed to touch something deeper. By morning, the story had gone viral. Le Ciel, birthday, and Real Class R DJ trended worldwide. Interviews were requested, talk shows called, and offers poured in, including a college fund for Emma from an anonymous donor. John politely declined most, accepting only the education fund. 1 month later, Le Ciel hosted its first family night. John and Emma helped welcome 12 families, each with their own story of sacrifice and love. The original waiter, now reformed, served them with genuine warmth. The chef prepared special menus. The Diamond Woman and her husband sponsored the second month's event. Robert Downey Jr. didn't attend. He made sure the night belonged to the families, but sent a video message that played on screens throughout the restaurant. Real class isn't about what you can afford. It's about recognizing the dignity in every person. John Miller taught me that, and now Liciel is teaching it to others. In the years that followed, restaurants across the country adopted similar programs. A movement grew from that single evening when a father's love for his daughter caught the attention of a movie star. And Emma? She kept the menu from that night, framed above her desk. Not as a reminder of meeting a celebrity, but of the night her father showed her what true worth really means. Wow, what a story! If this moved you, imagine what else we have for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think.